In Continuum, the ripple and various displacement effects have been given the BCC Plus makeover, with some creative and really useful time-saving features added. Let's take a quick look. The classic ripple distortion effect has been supercharged with BCC Plus. You now have a choice of 3 different ripples that you can combine for more complex looks or separate to have 3 ripples in one effect. So let's start by applying ripple. Just going to search for it here in After Effects and just drop it onto this footage. So that's the classic ripple look. Always a good look. If we look over here in the settings, you can see ripple 1 is twirled open, and I can make a range of different adjustments to that. I'm just going to leave it like that. I'm going to twirl it closed, open up ripple 2, and enable that. All right, so we have a separate ripple. So let's make some adjustments to that. First of all, I'll just decrease the wave width and maybe increase the height. And the fall off, I'll adjust as well. Just knock that back. And also the radius. And now I can probably just increase that fall off. So I can fine tune that ripple separately from ripple 1. Let's do the same for ripple 3. Twirl that open. And this time what I'll do is I'll make it bigger. So we have more ripples outside the sphere. And I'll increase the height a little bit, increase the wave width. You can see it's super responsive because it's a BCC Plus effect, of course, so it's working on the GPU. And decrease the fall off, and I can adjust the inside radius to knock that back from the inside like that. Now that's already looking a lot more interesting than just a single ripple, and I've kind of got it looking how I want it, but I'd like to make some global adjustments to this, and I can do that using the global settings. And these settings here will affect ripple 1, 2, and 3. So if I want to just, increase the radius and, the wave width, I can dial in the look exactly how I want it and not mess up these individual settings. And take a look at this. If I move the center point, all of the ripples move together. And that's because under ripple 2 and 3, you can see link center point is enabled. If I uncheck that and uncheck that, now I have the 3 separate ripples. How cool is that? And once I have a setup that I like to experiment with the different waveform shapes. I'm just going to twirl these guys up and twirl open waveform. First thing is try different shapes. So you've got a sine by default, but things like sawtooth, take a look at that. If I come into global and just increase the height a little bit, you get these really nice glassy looks. How good is that? And what else? Semicircle. More of a sort of spiderweb kind of look, isn't it? Move those around. And you've also got this twirl perp height option. Now, if I turn this on, you won't see a lot of difference. That's because each of the different ripples has its own perpendicular height. And if I increase that, take a look at that. It's sort of twisted around. It gives you more of a sort of glassy refraction look. And you can dial that in for each of the different ripples. So much control. I've never had this much control over a ripple effect. And there's also been some film glow and lens distortion options added. So I turn on film glow. It's a little bright. I'll just decrease the intensity. Maybe I can change the color a little bit, make it a little warmer, and increase the threshold. And these lens distortion options are interesting too. So if I enable that and increase distortion, I can go that way, or I can go the opposite way and get that kind of look. Amazing. I could play around with these kind of effects for hours. So loads of different options allowing you to customize your ripples and get really creative with the humble ripple effect. So that's ripple. Now let's talk displacement. And BCC Displacement Map, Vector Displacement, and Polar Displacement have all been added to the BCC Plus family and include some great new features that are common to all 3 effects. So let's take a look at those new features by using the displacement map as an example. So I'm going to type in displacement and add BCC Plus Displacement Map to this shot. All right, so by default, you saw a little bit of movement there. And currently for map type, it's set to layer. So it's looking for a layer to use. and I haven't set any layer there. And this is where I would search my hard drive for a suitable displacement map. And that takes time. But the great news is that in all 3 displacement effects, you now have access to a range of over 1,000 different displacement maps using the FX editor. So if I change the map type from layer to displacement map, you'll see a change straight away. And this is using the default displacement map. And there's a couple of ways we can browse for different maps. One is to click on the FX editor, and the other is just to click this handy Browse Maps button, which I find myself using all the time. And here inside the FX editor, here's all my maps. Now I can look down the list. You can see there's so many, and some of you might recognize these from BCC Plus Lite, which are used for gobos for that effect, but they make great displacement maps. You can also search them via the different categories here. I'm just going to maybe apply this one. You can make changes right here in the FX editor. Just going to just leave it like that, click apply, and starting to look really interesting. Maybe just increase the displacement. Got a really nice fractured glass look. So what a great time saver. So far in my experience, I found everything that I've needed inside of the included displacement map presets. Now, here's the same displacement, but with a different shot that I think it's more suitable for. It's kind of got a tension to it. It's a bit creepy, maybe from a thriller film, perhaps. And I've also added some text and a couple of keyframes for displacement. Watch what happens when I drag the time indicator. We get this fracturing look. Look at what it does to the text. How good is that? So a shot that was already fairly tense is made extra creepy using BCC plus Displacement Map. And for an extra level of creepiness, I can turn on the inbuilt glitch. So I'm just going to switch that on. Take a look at that. That's glitching both the footage and the displacement map. And there's no keyframes required. Continuum video glitch is actually one of my favorite effects, and I'm loving seeing it included in some of these effects as well. You may also notice that there's a little bit of RGB separation there. So if we go into displacement, you can actually separate the red, green, and blue individually, which is always a really good look as well. And here's another example of how good displacement can look with these displacement maps. This is actually just 3 text layers with straight cuts, but with displacement map and glitching turned on, you get some amazing results, like automatic animation. And one thing to keep in mind is that BCC plus scanline, which I've used on an adjustment layer here, also has the glitch included. So I've added that on an adjustment layer, put it over the top, and just with 3 straight cuts, I get this automatic animation. And while we're talking about not needing keyframes, both Ripple and the displacement effects have the beat reactor included. And here I've used the beat reactor to control various parameters for these effects, and also other continuum effects like prism and film glow. Okay, so that's a quick look at some of the things that are new with the new BCC Plus Warp Effect lineup. To learn more about this, you can visit boriseffects.com, where you can also download a free trial. For now, this is John. See you in the next tutorial.